This morning, I'm going to talk a little about mind over matter. And the first thing that comes to my mind when I say that is Barbara Cullihan. Every week, she leads us in meditation. And that's one of the, I don't want to use the word easy, but that's one practice that we embrace here that allows us to realize how much power our mind has. That our mind, if we choose, can be tapped into divine mind, universal mind. And meditation is a practice that we can develop that mind technique, that intentional control of our minds and our brains. Barbara is also a licensed hypnotherapist. And I'm going to probably butcher this bad, so if I make a mistake, just consider the source. But hypnosis is another avenue whereby we can surrender all the power that our habits and our fears and our self-imposed limitations have on our thinking and our actions, and allow a suggestion from outside be a step in transcending those limitations, whatever they might be. Is that pretty close to what hypnosis can do? There again, helps us develop the ability to use our mind over matter. There's a group of monks, and monks, that's, I think we're very fortunate. I think people in this room have made a great choice. I study a lot of the different philosophies that people in the monkeries have, and we're all free to make a choice, and they choose to live in an environment where they spend a major part of their lives focused and meditating, silence, being one with the universe, and kind of, I'll say, sheltered. And I can't help but think sometimes, how much are they missing from this adventure that we call life? They undoubtedly have so much peace and tranquility in their day-to-day. But think of all the excitement, all the pain, all the anxiety, all the joy, all the wild experiences that each one of us has on a minute-by-minute basis. And they're kind of off there in the monkery having their quiet time. I just think they miss a lot, but that's their choice. But there's a group of monks, and let me write this, called Tummo is their philosophy. And they're very much in mind control, controlling their intention, their mind. And so there's an organization that set about to see if this really works. So they got two individuals. One individual practices this Tummo philosophy, and this other guy, he's just a tough guy. So they take these two guys, they put them in a swimming suit, they set them on a chair inside of a flash freezer that they flash freeze products. And the first guy, tough dude, he's there, he can do this. He sits there, I'm tough. Well, in about 15 minutes, his body temperature went to almost being frozen. And he's athletic, in perfect shape, and his breath went almost non-existent. His blood pressure dropped, and his body actually started to freeze, and they took him out. Then the fellow that practices this Tummo philosophy of meditation and mind direction was in there for over a half an hour. And he breathed, and he concentrated on the inward comforts of his being. He concentrated on the normalcy of his body functions, the blood pumping and hair growing and breath and all the things, the capillaries doing their job and the lungs doing their job and all of these things. 35 minutes, and his body temperature only decreased by 10 or 15 degrees, and they removed him. So it does work. So much great work has been done teaching people through meditation and hypnotism, and also just through practice of focusing your thoughts. So many people have been able to manage pain very, very well. To manage addiction very, very well. I've talked about that book, the Divine Matrix by Gregg Braden. And I went online after I read the book and saw some of his videos and stuff. He has a video of people, and I think it's in China, that have been trained to focus their intention, truly focus their intention. And 5 or 6 of them stood around this person in a hospital bed who had, that they were looking at on a scope, a tumor. And these people who were able to really have control over their mind focused their intention on the eradication of that tumor. And in real time, on this video, you saw the tumor disappear. Most of us only use our brains and our minds to about 10% of capacity. We have the ability to, with practice, increase that capacity. There is, I've got to read this because it's a big word. I have trouble with the big words. Telekinosis. That is where people can move objects with their minds. And a lot of times we think that's pretty much a hoax. But they've done some experiences, and there's one that I watched, a little video about or a documentary about or something. This fellow took a little piece of aluminum foil and he bent it in half, and he had a needle stuck up, and he stuck it on the needle where it was balanced and just sitting there. And then he put a glass cover over it. And it took him 2 months of spending hours at a time concentrating on making that aluminum foil spin. And he worked at it for 2 months, every day, practice, practice, practice. At the end of 2 months, he could make it turn this way. He could make it turn that way. And I thought, well, there's some chemical that, no. It was his ability to train his mind to tap into the unseen energy that is in and everywhere, in everything and everywhere. There's another thing, another big word here. Precognition. Debbie knows a lot about that. uh, what do they call these people that can see things? Um, what's the word? Clairvoyancy. I have an opinion about that. And I've known people who could do that. And I think all of us possess this little quality that we don't even know about, we don't exercise. How many of you have had a deja vu experience? Like you've had another life or something? My theory, and I could certainly be wrong, I'm wrong a lot. I've got 3 or 4 ex-wives who could tell you how often I've been wrong. But I think that our brains have the capacity to tap into this unseen. And if you stop and think about this thing we call spirit, this unseen, we seem to come to the conclusion that in this unseen, there is no time and there is no distance. So if our brains have the capacity of tapping into that, all the events that take place, all the things that happen, the thoughts that are, the words that are, that's all without time and distance. And perhaps our brains pick up an earthquake that's going to happen next year or 10 years or next week, pick up that event just from its presence in the unseen. And I think it's the same way when we have these deja vus, or I was once a Native American Indian in upstate Michigan. Perhaps. Or perhaps that's just my brain tapping into events that happened in this space, into the sea of knowledge and events without time and without distance. And maybe that's just one of those moments that I become aware of. Something interesting to think about. And that's what all this is about on Sunday mornings, is to try to inspire you to think on your own. Figure out what works for you in your life. There's a group, I think it's called Entangled.org. And it's an interesting concept they have. They wonder how events affect consciousness and how consciousness affects events. And if you check out Entangled.org, you might find it interesting. Could be just, well, I don't know, yada, yada, yada. But they were considering what effect consciousness had on things happening in real time. And there are machines, and they are called random number generators. And they just randomly pick numbers or words. And they were wondering what effect consciousness or controlled thought would have on them. So they got 12 people together with their intention to break up the randomness of these random number machines. Didn't have much. There was not enough data there for them to come up with an idea, or with a thought, or a diagnosis. But they took them into places where disasters had happened. Floods, earthquakes, wars, terrible disasters. And just circulated them in the community. And almost immediately, the randomness of these machines was affected by the consciousness of people. And I think that whether we are aware or not how much power our minds, our brains, our consciousness emits into the universe, I think it really does. Every one of us has an effect on someone else by our actions. That's easily to see and easy to wrap your head around. But your mind, your thoughts, Vivian has said, for your thoughts are things. I think perhaps thoughts can be more than things. Thoughts can produce huge amount of energy, a mysterious amount of energy. And none of us probably can get a handle on how much energy our minds can produce. But perhaps they do, more than we know. Something interesting to ponder, something interesting to think about and consider. Whether it be how aware you become of the power of your mind as you meditate, or go through a process of hypnotism, or follow a particular practice or philosophy that has to do with being aware of how much power your mind has. But the quotes today kind of tie in with this. You might give them a read. But there's one fellow in there that has this, I think it's a very profound definition of consciousness. It's the unseen power or force or energy that controls what we think, what we say, and what we do at any given moment in time. And we can be in a state of having loving thoughts, saying loving and compassionate things, helping serve food at a food kitchen, and that consciousness that we are experiencing at that point of time is quite lovely. And we go out and get in our car and somebody cuts us off or takes a parking place, and all of a sudden we're doing hand signals and spewing forth a huge amount of expletives. Is that what the right word is? Yes. Total consciousness shift. And our consciousness can shift with every breath. But why we come here, I'm assuming, I don't know, but I'm assuming, why we come here is to expand our awareness, to expand our understanding of some of these mysteries that Bruce was talking about, to gain a little more value, a little more insight of this adventure that we call life. As we become a little bit more aware of the power of our minds, and the state of our mind is the state of our life. How we think is how we live. When you consider how much power you have in your mind and the infinite resource available to that human mind, you might have achieved a little level of something some people call enlightenment, or you may have expanded your awareness. You may have learned something new. We'll go back to our abundance. When you have abundance, what do you do with it? You share it. And if you've had some new thoughts or new realizations that seem to have enriched your life a little bit, share it. That becomes a light for someone else, for yourself. When that light, excuse me, when that light comes on, you can see to take your next step, and maybe the next step. Maybe you can cast a little light on somebody else's path. Every one of us in here is here for a reason. We have a purpose. We may not have any idea what that is. It doesn't make any difference. That's one of the sweet mysteries. And the joy, I think, isn't so much finding out all of the answers to the mystery. The joy is the process, the discovery. I was having a discussion with somebody this morning, a little conversation, and I said, you know, how we're different than religion, spirituality and religion. Religion seems to be dogma, and spirituality is discovery. And when we allow our minds to ask questions we never thought about asking before, when we practice controlling our thoughts and look and see at the results of those thoughts, and they have on our mind, just like an experiment. Today, I'm not going to have anything but crummy thoughts. We'll see how I feel at the end of the day. Tomorrow, I'm going to just give everybody I know $10 and see how I feel at the end of that day. Try these little things. I encourage all of us to experiment. Try some things out. And when you have a little success experience, when you have that, when you actually get a Pop-Tart that's got stuffing in it. Yeah. Share it. Share it. Each of us is a manifestation of all that is. And I'll leave you with a little something to think about this mystery of no time, no distance, evolution, human beings. Our species was created or happened or whatever, I don't know for sure, millions of years ago. At that point in time, there was no such thing as eyeglasses. How could this creation process exist without the knowledge that 40% of the human beings on this planet at some point in time would wear eyeglasses? And look how conveniently our ears are placed. Just thought I'd pass that along. My dear family, each one of us has joy and love. We've got anxiety and pain like everybody else. We don't have to share that much. Everybody's got plenty. But some people are living in a pretty dark, pretty dank place. And we have light to share. So let's share it. Let's stand up and sing this little light of mine.